Good morning, everybody. Good morning again, because most of you, we had a chance to meet in December when we started the workshops for the staff of the Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Agriculture regarding rural development programming. Now, today, we start the series of 8 thematic workshops, and the first one today will be conducted by Mr. Andrzej Hałasiewicz, who is our trainer with regards to that theme, which is about the concept of rural development. And today will be this is the second workshop, but in fact, the first of the series of 8, as I mentioned before. I hope you will enjoy it, because even if we have a mode of the conference or meeting with Zoom, we try to organize the session in most proactive way as much as possible. We will not only conduct the presentation and discuss, but we will also want you to be more involved in the process of debating between yourself and ourselves how rural development should be organized, programmed, and how it should be understood, in fact, in the context of the development of the regions of Azerbaijan. Thank you very much for your attention. Now I'm giving a floor to Mr. Andrzej Hałasiewicz, who is our trainer, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. So, Andrzej, the floor is yours.
Andrzej, please open the microphone.
Yeah.
Microphone.
Open microphone. Yeah. Open microphone.
Yes, I have a problem. So today really is a day of technical problems.
It seems so. Yes.
I don't see my mouse on the screen. So it's hard to operate now. Oh, it's okay. I will share my screen with you now, and we'll start presentation. Do you see my screen already?
I think everything is fine now. Yes. I think everything is fine.
Yes, everything is okay.
Oh, that's great.
Everything is okay.
That's great. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet all of you, even in this virtual way. Of course, definitely, I would prefer to meet all of you face to face and see you and could talk to you, listen to you, and learn from you. Because, you know, in current world, Jacek told that I'm a trainer today, but in fact, you know, in the current world, we have a situation that usually we are learning one from another. So for sure, in this real meeting, I will have a greater chance to learn more from you and better understand what's going on in this rural world to which Azerbaijan rural areas belong to. So today, in fact, we will start with some very, very basic questions. So what is the plan of the today presentation? after the introduction, we'll start with these questions, which would create a good base for the whole today seminar. So, we'll try to understand why there is a need for rural development policy. To such questions, my answer quite often is let's say, a political one, because in many places, more inhabitants are living in the cities now. So when the politicians are taking decisions, they're trying to please those who are voting for them. And because more votes are in the cities, usually decisions are taken for their interests. And rural inhabitants are quite often not treated seriously enough. So the next element is approaches to rural development, and it will be the concluding comments for this first sessions. So let's start with the first questions. What is the rural development for you? And it is the question to you. So please answer these questions with 1 or 2 sentences, and write it in the blog to Ramil your answer. So please remember, it's not an examination. So really, please write what will come to your mind. What do you feel? What is your first reaction? What is the rural development for you? So write your answer on the Zoom blog and address it to Ramil. You can write it in Azeri, so the interpreters will translate it into English. And you have 5 minutes for answering these questions. So 5 minutes for you for answering the question, what is the rural development for you? So is it clear? So 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
Hörmətli həmkarlar, yəni aydın oldu da burada sadəcə bir cümlə ilə ki, kənd ərazilərinin inkişafı sizin üçün nə deməkdir? Artıq ilk cavablar gəlir. Yəni ilk ağlını düşündüyünüz kəndin inkişafı sizin üçün nə deməkdir? Sualına bir cümlə ilə qısa bir cavab istəyirik.
Ramil is giving explanation now. Again, repeating the...
Çox sağ olun Cavid müəllim. Abdullah müəllim, artıq cavablar gəlir.
Sorry, answers.
Qısa və konkret cavablar üçün təşəkkür edirəm.
Let's say answers.
Çox sağ olun Eldar müəllim, Elvin müəllim, Əli müəllim.
Okay. Ramil, could we move to the next questions?
There was some mess in terms of, there was some mess in terms of the reflection of comments. Now it's sorted out.
Okay. So,
Now it's sorted out.
okay. So can I move to the next question?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is, who are the key stakeholders in the rural development? So what actors in these rural games are important? So again, please don't put too many, just no more than 5. And again, it's your feeling. What do you think? Who is the most important
Olmasın. Sizin
or stakeholders? And write your answers on the Zoom blog to Ramil. You can write in Azeri. And again, you have 5 minutes for answering this question. Is it clear? 5 minutes for answering this question. 5 key stakeholders in the rural development.
Hörmətli həmkarlar, yəqin ki, aydın oldu da ikinci sualımızda. Qısa birinci kimi bir cümləlik cavab istəyir. Ondan sonra ona uyğun olaraq öz çıxışını quracaqdır. Zəhmət olmasa qısa bir cümləlik cavablarınızı artıq Eldar müəllim göndərib, digər əməkdaşlar, həmkarlar göndərir. Kəndin inkişafında da deyə bilərik biz. Əsas maraqlı tərəf kimlərdir? Yəni bircə cümlə cavab yazsaz birinci kimi minnətdar olarıq. Kəndin inkişafında əsas maraqlı tərəf kimlərdir?
Ramil, bir dənə zəhmət olsun da Ramil bir dənə baxın zəhmət olmasa. Bu dəfə də öz adından gəlmədi.
Bircə saniyə.
Elvin Səfərlinin adından gəldi bu dəfə. Çünki ardıcıllıq son ondan gəlmişdi.
Ülvi müəllim, Elbrus müəllimdən gəlib, Eldar müəllimdən gəlib, Ülvi müəllimdən.
Bax, bir dənə də axırıncısını atıram, baxın. İndi mən yazıram. Amma burada yazır Kamu, Elvin Səfərli.
Siz orada ol qoyun, ya da mənim adımı seçin.
Veduşim webinar yazıram onda. Onda, aha, bir dəqiqə.
Siz orada mənim adım çıxır, Ramil qoyun, zəhmət.
İndi baxın zəhmət olmaz.
İndi gəldi.
Adım olaraq gəldi.
Ramil Babayev adınız olaraq gəldi.
Aha.
İndi hamı seçildi onun üçün. Bəli, Təranə xanım da yazdı. Fermerlər, yerli əhali. Təxminən 2 dəqiqəmiz qalıb, zəhmət olmasa, bax bu formada bir cümlə ilə kəndin inkişafında maraqlı tərəflər kimlərdir?
Okay. Could we move?
Cavablar üçün çox sağ olun. Demək olar ki, yekunlaşır. Biz artıq başlaya bilərik. Dear Anje, yes, we can move.
Thank you for your answers. We're done. Basically, we can move on.
Great. So and the next question is, what are the most important changes in the Azerbaijan countryside, Azerbaijan rural areas in the last 10, 25 years? I put this 10 years also because many of you are too young to remember what's happening in rural areas 25 years ago. So please answer, what do you feel again? And least no more than five most significant changes in Azerbaijan rural areas. So again, you can do it in the same way, writing your answers on the Zoom blog to Ramil. And we have again 5 minutes for answering this question. Is it clear?
Hörmətli həmkarlar, yəqin ki, aydın oldu da 3-cü sualımız artıq yekunlaşır. Yenə əvvəlki qaydada qısa bir cavabla ki, son 10-25 il ərzində Azərbaycanda kənd yerlərinin inkişafı üçün əsas çağırışlar nələr olmuş? Yəni buna da bir cümlə ilə ki, Azərbaycan üçün əsas çağırışlar nədən ibarətdir? Kənd əraziləri üçün. Burada söhbət çağırışlardan gedir. Bir cümlə ilə yazın, daha sonra təqdimata başlayacaq təlimçimiz.
Ram.
Buyurun.
Çağırışlar yoxsa dəyişikliklərdir?
Bizcə changes, dəyişikliklər, bəli. Yəni sizlər bu proseslərin içindəsiz. Son 10-25 il ərzində Azərbaycanda kənd əraziləri üçün ən mühüm dəyişikliklər nələrdir, nədən ibarət olmuşdur? Artıq cavablar gəlir. Hər birinizə təşəkkürlər.
Ümid edirəm indi artıq tam ünvanına çatır ha yazılarım Ramil bəy.
Bəli, bəli, çatır. Çox sağ olun.
Yəni,
Artıq
bir ehtimal.
yekunlaşmaq üzrədir. Artıq həmkarlar da sonuncuya daha əhatəli cavab yazırlar.
So we're having a comprehensive answer to the last questions.
Great, thank you. So I understand that we can move on.
Yes, we can.
Do you need more time for this question, or it's
No, enough.
we can move on? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So it's okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Great. So please translate answers to English and send it via email to me.
Okay.
And I will continue presentation for a while, and then we'll make this break for. As you see, a beautiful picture of the countryside, and it is really important to remind ourselves what the significant changes we have in the recent times. In the middle of 19th century, 75% of the population had been involved in agriculture activities. So 75% of the population was simply dependent on agriculture, working on farms and living from farms. And of course, from this time, we have a significant speed of the changes. So at the beginning of the 20th century, just only less than 1/3 of the population working in agriculture. And today, the situation is like this. Of course, we have a big differences between countries. Not everywhere is like this, but we have countries where it's less than 1%. But of course, we have also countries where it's more people. You can see it yourself on the World Bank website when we can see chart and data about employment in agriculture in different countries and in the world in general. So here's a chart with just opening on my screen. And you can see the changes in the last 30 years by moving this button here. It is opening too slowly, I'm afraid. But hopefully it will work. Oh, yes. So you can see how it is changing with the course of time. It's the data and the chart for the employment in agriculture for the whole globe. So this is the world data. But also you can find here information also about Azerbaijan. So as you see, in Azerbaijan, still 36% of the labor forces are involved in agriculture. So of course, we need to keep in mind, and we need to remember about it, because it has its consequences. So on the presentation, we have also link directly related to Azerbaijan. So on the World Bank website, you can see how its situation looks in different countries. Some of you participated in the December webinar. So for those, it will be some kind of a repetition, but for those who are new, I will make a brief summary what I think that is the most important. So in fact, talking about rural areas, we faced many problems or many challenges. So we have a problem with rurality in the sense that it's not clear what does it mean. So in many places, just taken from statistical point of view. So which part of the population is living in rural areas? At simply density of the population decided what is treated as rural and what isn't. In some places, like this in Poland, there's an administrative decision. So this administrative decision, what is the city, and everything what is not a city, it's treated as rural areas. So for many years, for quite a long time, it was also quite easy, because from the economic point of view, rurality means simply connected to agriculture. That rural was understood as agriculture. But now in many places, when this low share, low percentage of the share of labor forces involved in agriculture, it's not true any longer, because we have many villages in many places which are almost not connected to agriculture, because in the village with few hundreds inhabitants could be just only few farmers, and others are doing something different, working outside of agriculture. Then we have this cultural meaning of rurality, rural culture, rural lifestyle. It's changing with the course of time, and this rural culture is also moving into this direction. There's no significant differences between rural and urban culture. And also the same with the lifestyle. The lifestyle in the countryside, it's going to be more and more similar to that in the city. And philosophical meaning of rurality. So you are rural in your head. So for example, you can live in the capital of the city, but you still could treat yourself as a rural man. That's my case. I'm really very much a rural man, despite that I live now in Warsaw. So with the course of time, the functions of rural areas changed. So it's the timeline here. So agricultural products as food, raw materials, energy and so on, with the course of time is playing less, or let's say the share is a little bit lower, and non-agricultural functions are growing. So now from in many places, rural areas is more just living space. We have just residential areas. More important is recreation, different type of social services, and rural landscape and rural culture is playing more and more important role. So less important agriculture itself and more important other functions of rural areas. So many rural areas are facing such a situation that on the one hand, we observe the processes of depopulation of remote rural areas. People are moving from these peripheries to other places, to the cities or to rural areas with better access to communication, better access to services. On the other hand, also we observe a significant movement of urban dwellers to rural areas. So many people prefer to live in the city, in the rural areas instead of the city. And many of them are commuting because labor working places are available in the cities, in urban areas. So we have significant demographic changes in these remote rural areas. We are facing the aging populations. There's more and more elderly people. So there's a problem with labor places, the growing unemployment and low human capital as a consequences, and significant structural problems. So depopulation is the problem of many rural areas. On the other hand, those accessible rural areas are under big pressure of some kind of urbanizations, because too many people are moving there and so on. But as a result, we have here a high human capital, and because there's more people here, more services are needed, as better access, easier access to the city. There's no problem with unemployment. So on the one hand, the population, on the other hand, some kind of overpopulation of some urban areas. The world is changing, and today in this network society, due to new technologies and communications techniques, development is possible without a necessity to concentrate everything in a space, because you could have access through those new technologies. So this current network society create the situation that the distance, which was the problem for rural dwellers, is partly disappearing. So, for example, you have an access to educations, distance educations, you have an access to different services and so on. So rural development now is possible, have let's say a new chance due to this advanced technologies. Very important, as usual, but there's a relation changes its features, but urban-rural relations are very, very, very important. In some of the next webinars, we'll discuss it in details. So how different organizations are looking at rural development? Food and Agriculture Organization. Food and Agriculture Organization for many years from its beginning, it was created as a result of the Second World War or World War II, focusing on agriculture very much. But in the FAO also is an understanding that food security, fighting or eliminating hunger, and have a sustainable development, there is a need for a good relation between agriculture itself and rural development. And rural development is the most successful when growth in agriculture and growth in non-farm rural economy is, those two processes are coming together. So development on non-farm economy is very, very important for agriculture itself, because it's taking this unneeded, unnecessary labor forces from agriculture and make the agriculture production more efficient. Because in many places in rural areas, simply in agriculture, there are too many people, too much people are involved in agriculture, and without any problem, even quite opposite. For benefit of agriculture, you can shift the labor forces from agriculture to non-farm rural activities. OECD. So what OECD played a very, very important role in developing rural development policies. This really, really important institution, and those of you who could be interested more in it, really, I recommend the website of OECD. You can find there a very, very useful information. So according to OECD, what makes a rural community a good place to live, work, run business, and have your family life? And there is the variety of factors, but the most important is access to services, access to schools, to health care, and when you have a good conditions for running business. And in general, when you have a well-developed social life in the community, a good, trustful community leadership is also important. Holistic lens on rural development. It is the strong recommendation of OECD. So, because rural development is not just simply that rural development policy. Many rural aspects of rural life depends from many different policies. For how the state is shaping its educational policy, health policy, and so on. So rural development should be seen through the holistic lens. Otherwise, many aspects we can lose from the side. So the place-based policies should be delivered for well-being to all. What does it mean place-based policies. There is no one universal rural development policy. It's always should be adjusted to the given place. So the place-based policies is needed. Multi-level governance and community-led development. So what is possible should be solved, should be decided at the lowest level. What is possible, what could be decided or solved by the level of farms or family level should be done there. What is possible to be solved on the village level should be done there. What is possible to be solved on the community level should be done there, and then regional level, and next on the state level, on the level of whole country. And many solutions, of course, should be solved on the international level. What is the next recommendation of OECD? Prepare rural areas for technological, demographical, and environmental changes. So you have to create a good conditions and information that rural dwellers could use technology and be prepared to demographic changes. And also in very important aspect is the climate changes and environmental aspects. Address the diversity of challenges and opportunities facing rural areas. So this diversity, place-based, and answer to challenges should be adjust to this diversity and well adjust to the needs of the given place. And for this, you need a good information. So information base of the evidence and data at the right scale. So it is then aspect to which our project is contributing. Because when you have a good information, you could propose good solutions. European Union. There are three main objectives and overall purpose of the Common Agriculture Policy. So again, at the beginning of Common Agriculture Policy, it focused on agriculture, but with the course of time, it shifted more and more to rural development. Of course, still competitiveness of agriculture and effectiveness of agriculture is important, but ensuring the sustainable management of natural, it's also important, and different aspect of climate actions. And achieving and balanced territorial development of rural economies. So this, these aspects of rural development, it's very much present here, and this creation of working places in rural areas is very, very, very important. In practice, rural development programs in the European Union are referring to the six most important priorities. Of course, there are more details, but let's stay on this level. So, knowledge transfer and innovation in agriculture, forestry, and rural areas is the first priority. Farm viability, competitiveness, of course, it's still very, very important, a sustainable management of forest. Food chain organization, animal welfare, risk management in agriculture, the next priority. But ecosystem related to agriculture and forestry, it's very, very important aspect taking into account in any kind of activities. Resource efficiency, low carbon, climate resilient economy. It's the next priority. And social inclusion, poverty reduction, and economic development of rural areas. It is the European Union approach. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead. There's a time for it now. In this part, in this session, we'll continue the issue, starting with your answers to the questions, and then we'll discuss the further issue related to rural development policy. So we'll try to answer why there is a need for this rural development policy, what kind of challenges we are facing, and again we'll look at stakeholders and beneficiaries of the rural development policy. So what is the rural development for you? What kind of answer do you delivering? The rising the living standard of the populations is the most important point, because in fact everything what we are doing, it is for well-being of the population. So rising living standard of the population is really very much in point. Rural development is the process of improving the quality of life, economic well-being of the population of rural areas. Economic diversification. Yes, because it's impossible to increase a level of well-being without economic diversification. Development of infrastructure in rural areas, because without good infrastructure, the diversification is impossible, and also agriculture is not able to develop. It's not able to fully use its potential. So good infrastructure is let's say a precondition, basic condition for development and job creation, both in agriculture and farm jobs outside of agriculture are very needed. And the development of agriculture depends on the development of rural areas. Yes, it's absolutely true that development agriculture is limited by development of rural areas. When we have a better development, it's also a benefit for agriculture, because agriculture could develop and fully use its potential. Increasing interest in rural areas, the next answer. In my opinion, it is the process to ensure the development of life and economic conditions of people living in rural areas. Rising standard of living and legislation. Very, very, very good point, because it's, this lens through which we are looking and the life in rural areas. Without a good legislation, the development of rural areas could be very much limited. So good framework of norms. Systematic approach to the specific region. So it's again that systematic wide approach and taking into account the specificity of the region. Development of agrotourism. For sure, agrotourism is an important part of economic activity in rural areas, but we have to be aware that it has its limits. So it's one option, but in some areas, very, very important one. Reducing the gap and imbalance between rural and urban areas in terms of social, economic, and infrastructure development. Absolutely, absolutely true. Of course, this reducing gap means increasing conditions, living conditions in rural area. So rising living standard and adopting the modern standards, the next answer. So living standard, again, rural infrastructure, improving the welfare of rural residents, increasing the level of employment. So who are the key stakeholders in the rural development? State entrepreneur. So state, peasants, investors, civil society, municipalities, Ministry of Economy, entrepreneurs, and someone listed this way, rural population, rural residents, farmers, municipalities, local government agencies, central authorities, local and foreign investors. And the next group of answers, government agencies, municipalities, entrepreneurs, policy designers, policy and program designers and implementers, state producers, investors, processors, buyers of raw materials, again, government agencies, entrepreneurs, municipalities, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Agriculture, district executive power, municipalities. First, the rural entrepreneurs and the officials of the regions, farmers, locals, public interest, investors, farmers, consumers. Those are your answers. And what are the most important changes in Azerbaijan countryside? I need to do it in a different way. So modern irrigation system and livestock or cattle breeding complex have been developed. Subsidies and credits are available now. Development of communal services, development of infrastructure, improvement in agriculture, development of education, decrease unemployment, infrastructure again, irrigation system again, development of utilities, a better road infrastructure, social infrastructure, large agrarian farms. It's also the observed in the last years. Development of rural areas, restoration of infrastructure, reconstruction of roads, creation of agro-parks, subsidies, tax benefits, infrastructure, roads, gasification, constructions of new schools, transition to regional development as well as rural development, agro-parks, more programs and laws oriented to increase of rural businesses, but also the state's program on social and economic development of rural areas, infrastructure, development of agriculture, development of education. I think that more or less I cover all your answers, but still we have to chance to discuss them, as well. Do you see my screen?
No.
No.
No, we don't see it.
Okay, 1 moment, please.
Yes, okay.
So this is the list of the most important changes in the last year. So what in general, not looking only on Azerbaijan but in rural areas in many places, what we see. That in general, in many rural areas, there's a lower level of education. There's a problem with infrastructure. In some areas, the shortage of labor, and there's a problem with environment. Even, you know, we have some such way of thinking that we think that in the rural areas, there is no problem with environment. It's a clean environment. It's not true. In many places, agriculture contributed to the damage of environment a lot. So, looking at agriculture, we have the problem with the structure and size of farms. In many places in Azerbaijan, it's also the situation that farms are too small to be a good base for high quality of life of farmers. So we have a problem with structure of agriculture production. And when we even have the agricultural production, but quite often we have a problem with ways to deliver it to the market. And usually we face the situation that in the distribution of the food, the added value is taken by others, and farmers' share is very raw. So what kind of challenges of rural development we are facing? Those problems of rural areas, problems of agriculture, and problems with environment. So going more deeper into details, what kind of problems of rural areas we are facing is some kind of monoproduction in some regions. as the result, farmers depends on one type of agriculture products, what could create a very bad situation in the case when prices are going down or demand is limited. Insufficient of farm employment. So it's really the problem that it's not easy to find a job outside of agriculture. In many rural areas, we have a high level of unemployment, both registered and hidden unemployment. Hidden unemployment is when people are working on farm, but in fact, they are not needed there because there are too many persons, too many hands in the given farm, and quite easy. Some family members could work outside of the farm, but it's not easy to find a job. Low rural incomes, so limiting this low income is limited by demand or level of agriculture productions. And also there's a problem with services, which also have an effect of income. Insufficient technical, social, and cultural infrastructure. So it is the problem for many rural areas. Insufficient education and qualifications of rural inhabitants. Limited access to business support services. Limited level of economic, culture, and social activities in rural areas. Weak organization and weak institutions supporting rural development. And still in many places, marginalization of rural cultural heritage. And rural cultural heritage, it's really lost in many rural areas. Looking at agriculture, low agricultural income, fragmented farm structure, ill-adjusted agricultural production, both in the terms of quality of quantity, which is not adjusted to the consumer needs, weak market organization and insufficient links with the marketing chain, not enough on-farm investment, insufficient farmer skills in terms of production technology, marketing and management, and weak farmers organizations. Farmers are usually not well organized. They didn't organize themselves. That could be, they could increase their position, for example, in this food chain. Environment. So local threat to the environment caused by agriculture or by industry, which is located in rural areas. There's a lack of environmental facilities on farms. There are problems with management of marginal land and high construction cost of environmental facilities. Those are some problems, some key problems of the environment in rural areas. So why we need a rural development policy? Because we should find ways to solve problems listed a while ago. And we need to face current and future challenges. So what are those challenges? So we need to improve the technical and social infrastructure. We need to create conditions for development of non-farm agriculture economic activities. So we need to change agriculture improve the farm structure. We need to modernize farms, improve the quality and also quantity of the processing of agricultural products. We need to strengthen farmers' roles in the food chain and implement of biological improvements also. So creation of the next challenge is creation of the conditions for sustainable development of rural areas by reducing negative impact of agriculture on environment, promotion of environmentally friendly farming methods, including organic farming, but not only, with particular focus on areas of the high nature value, or those areas which are particularly sensitive to environmental changes. We need a better management of marginal land, including afforestation. We need training and demonstration activities and protection and promotion of rural culture, art, craft, and we need to protect and promote regional tradition. And as a result, so we need to change the employment patterns and create more off-farm employment with more jobs for additional income. So it could be, you know, that farmer could still run the farms, that find some activity outside of farming, or simply some people should find a job outside of agriculture. Improve of education of rural dwellers. Education is a key element for giving a better chance to finding a good job outside of farming. And we need better infrastructure, both for living and for business developing. We need to improve farm agrarian structure. So usually it means a bigger size of farms, but bigger doesn't mean that we should create this, you know, latifundia system. We need a reasonable size of family farms. As the results of the good rural development policies and rural development programs, we should improve links between producers and agri-food markets, maintain and improve natural landscape and cultural heritage values of rural areas. We need to improve administrative and institutional structures serving agriculture and supporting rural development. So I already use this word stakeholder. So who is the stakeholder in general? Stakeholder is a person or group of the people who own a share in the business. It is the origin of this word stakeholder. So a person such an employee, customer, or citizen who is involved within an organization, society, and therefore has responsibilities towards it and an interest in its success. So your answer to these questions, who are key stakeholders, was really very good and very much in point. I took this definition from the Cambridge dictionary. So it is a stakeholder, a person who has a responsibility and interest in a given process or processes. So looking at stakeholders, let me repeat that you covered it quite well. Only maybe what was missing in your list is this multinational national level. It has quite significant influence because on the level of United Nations, some conventions, some agreements have influence on the life in rural areas as well. So government, the state level is very, very important, of course, government or governmental system in general, state agencies, regional authorities, regional institutions, local authorities, farmers, rural inhabitants. Those are stakeholders of rural development policy. And all levels should have influence on it, including rural inhabitants, farmers, local authorities, and so on. Who are beneficiaries of the rural development policy? Of course, first of all, it should be rural inhabitants. But in fact, a good rural development policy contributed to the development, the whole society, the whole population of the states, and in the wider point of view, development of humanity in general. So rural inhabitants, farmers, I put here also youth, because young generation is very, very important. We really need to take care of them, create a good conditions for their personal development, for development of their generation, local community, regions, state. So you see, I start from this lowest level going up because we are doing it for rural inhabitants. Any questions? Any comments? So Jacek, Ramil, now I would propose that you could have a discussion moderated by Ramil.
Perhaps
Hörmətli
let me
həmkarlar, əslində
Mikrofon
Azərbaycan
Jacek.
üçün çox maraqlı olan məsələyə toxunubdur.
yes,
Hər hansı
This is actually an interesting issue. This is interesting for us, for Azerbaijan. So please be active. This event, whole event, is for you. It is about you. And should you have any questions, please go ahead. Questions that have been raised so far in the presentation, they are basically pretty much the same all over the world. And our presenter, trainer mentioned very interesting, very topical issues. And you can raise questions that are within the scope of your interests, and you will get the explanation. Please be active.
birinci tədbirdən fərqli olaraq bu dəfə hər bir iştirakçı, yəni bura sistemə daxil olunubdur. Onlar özləri də birbaşa sual vermə imkanları var. Bildiyiniz kimi.
Well, unlike the first event, we have all the participants included into active groups, so that during the first session, during the first event in December, the participants had a chance only to provide anything in writing, but now you can ask your questions directly. We don't have so far technical problems, so please go ahead with your questions.
kifayət qədər bu maraqlı mövzuya toxunubdur. Məncə burada
We
suallar
are touching
çox
upon
maraqlıdır.
very interesting, pretty interesting issues. So I'm sure, I expect there should be a lot of questions.
Əslində açıqlaması çox ətraflı verildiğine göre o kadar da sual yaranmadı. Bu səbəbdən.
Well, I can say that the explanation was very detailed, so we don't have any questions left, but yet we have stuff from the Ministry of Economy and we have stuff from the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm sure, though there was quite a comprehensive overview of the issue, you may have some questions in terms of some details. We're going to have a next level event 3 days from now, in January 28. We're going to send you materials of this event, and also we will send you a questionnaire for you to cover, express your opinion. Usually Eldar has a lot of questions. Should you have any questions, please, or we can move to the third presentation.
So, if there is no questions or comments, let's make a break till 12:05, and we'll start the last session 12:05.
Yəni 15 dəqiqəlik fasilədir. 15 dəqiqədən
Right, 15 minutes break. We'll see you back in 15 minutes for the last session. And thank you for your patience. 15 minutes break.
On 15 dəqiqədən sonra 1-ə 5 dəqiqə işləmiş, hər birinizi gözləyirik. İkinci hissənin tərcüməsi çox yaxşı oldu, Nəzrin xanım. Mən də Azərbaycan dilində qulaq asdım. Yəni
Bəli, mən baxdım, keyfiyyətli idi, yoxladım, yəni heç bir echo da yox idi, yəni qırılmalar da yox idi. İndi olur belə hallar baş verir, yenə də.
İkinci hissə çox yaxşı idi. Üçüncü hissədə ümid edək ki, internet bizə imkan verəcəkdir.
Eşad müəllim megabayt götürüb, yəni onunla daxil olur.
Əslində bir dənə sual var deyə yoxdur, başlayanda verərik. Elvin Nemətli yazılı şəkildə bir sual göndərdi ki, indi kənd yerlərinin inkişaf planını hazırlamaq istəsək, ilk nədən başlamalıyıq?
Bəli, çox maraqlı sualdır.
Elvin müəllim 12-yə 5 dəqiqə işləmiş sizin sualdan başlayarıq, sonra təqdimatımızı. Bunu yəni burada qoşularaq da verə bilərdi əslində Elvin müəllim.
Bəli, heç bir sadəcə sual gəlmədi, yəni biz qeyd etdik.
Yəni yazmaq yox, canlı şəkildə də verə bilərdi.
Bəli, qeyd etdik onları. Mən gördüm siz məlumat verirsiniz. Çox sağ olun Ramil müəllim.
Həmçinindəki sual-cavab bölməsi açılıbdır artıq. Oradan da yaza bilərsiniz sualları.
Əslində soruşdum mən Kemal bəydən. O dedi ki, yəni açıq idi elə əvvəldən. Çünki mən webinarı qoşanda da, yəni quraşdıranda da elə etdik ki, bütün bu hissələrə, yəni bu question and part hissəsinə suallar qoyula bilər.
Bir də o 12.05-də təkrarlayırıq ki, Q&A bölməsinə də yazıla bilər. Çünki ora chatdan daha yaxşıdır ki, hər bir suallarına da cavab yazılır. Kənd yerlərinin inkişaf planının hazırlanmasını istəsək, ilk nədən başlamalıyıq? Əslində artıq hazırlayacaqlar, çünki Azərbaycan qanunvericiliyinə edilən dəyişikliyə görə də kənd yerlərinin inkişaf planları hazırlanacaqdır.
Aha, çox yaxşı.
Yəni bizim üçün aktual məsələdir.
Bəli, siz daha məlumatlısınız bu haqda.
Ramil bəy, təqribi nə qədər qalıb elə bir seminara bitməsinə? Eşidilmir, eşidə bilmirik sizi. Söndürmüşsünüz deyəsən. Hə, burada söndürürüz.
Üzr istəyirəm, söndürmüşəm. 9 dəqiqədən sonra başlayacağıq.
Yox, bilirəm, təqribi sonuna
bir tamamda qutaracaqdır tədbir.
düz bir tamamda, hə, mən onda
Düz bir tamamda, bəli. Yəni,
məlumat verib mən onda işdəki bəs sənədin
bəli,
inkişafı.
bəli. 8 dəqiqədən sonra başlayırıq.
So the key components of rural development program and its implementation plan. So in fact, the answer to the question is to have a good strategy and good program for rural development. We need a political decision what we want to do and in which way. For those, we need a good strategy and good rural development program. So I will show you and tell a bit about the rural development program in Poland. As I will use it as an example to show what are components of such a program. And then also I will briefly tell you about the structure of the program and decision which we taken during the SAPARD in preparation and implementation in Poland again. I am using the SAPARD example because I think that could be, let's say, good to see what kind of problems, what kind of challenges, and what kind of decision we taken at that time and was the reason for it. So, strategy of rural development.
Kendi arazilerin inkişafı.
Which problem we want to solve, which development trends we want to strengthen, and which challenges and what challenges we want to face. So what financial resources we need to allocate to achieve the goals which we agreed during the strategy preparation and political decision taken, what kind of priorities we would like to, what we want to do first and in which way. What other measures and what institutions do we want to include in the implementation of the strategy? Such questions we need to ask ourselves, and we need to find a good, reasonable answers to them. So, strategy, and then rural development program. The answer to the questions which you had on the screen a while ago, that the answers to those questions should be given in a rural development program. So the program should develop the means for realization and implementation of the rural development policy. It specifies the actions taken and describe the methods of implementation, and more precisely define all means, institutional, financial, for implementations processes. One of the first questions is the level, geographical level of program implementation. What level it should be? It should be the regional level, national-wide. It depends on the program and the situation. In the case of the European Union member state, we have a different situation. For example, in Italy, you have regional programs, but in Poland, we have the one national-wide program for implementation of rural development policy. But in any case, you need a good coordination. When you have a regional programs, of course, you need to have a good coordination of those regional programs to have a well-integrated approach for the whole country. But also coordination means that even when you have a national-wide program, you need to coordinate this rural development program with other programs, with other policies for achieving better results. So we start with the SWOT analysis, and SWOT analysis and needs identification. So analysis of the situation of rural areas and situation in agriculture. We need to know what is the current state, and we need to answer ourselves what we want to achieve. So we need to analyze strengths and identify them and analyze weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So it's typical SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. So good understanding what is the current state and what potential for development we have in our disposal. And we need to find a way how to release this potential. So rural development program for Poland for the period 2007-2013. So the program was prepared by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So what is the content of such program? The first answer is what is the geographical coverage of this program? As I said, it was in Poland we decided to have the one
Belə
national.
qərara gəldik ki, bizim bir
Then we have this analysis of strengths, weaknesses, and choice of the strategy and the result of ex-ante evaluation. During the program preparation is the process of ex-ante evaluation. In this program, it was the case that when program was prepared, the draft version of the program, an ex-ante evaluator commented and suggests some additions, some changes. Now, for the coming programming period, this ex-ante evaluation is the process of the preparation. So, evaluator is taking part in the program preparation to some extent. So, ex-ante. Justification of selected priorities and information related axis and measure suggested under each axis and description how it's going to be implemented. What is the measure? Measure is a mechanism of implementations, actions for achieving some goals. So in the presentation, you have the link to this document, and I think that you will receive the copy of this document, so you can take a look closer yourself and see what is behind of those all axes and how the program is composed and what elements are described. So there are many different elements which are taken into account, but it is a tool for implementation of rural development policy. So this is an example of rural development program. With the course of time, it's changing a little bit. For the next programming period, it will look slightly different, but I'm decided to show you this example because it seems to me that it's, let's say, a very good pictures what is needed, what should be included in such program. And now I'm moving to SAPARD program in Poland. SAPARD had been implemented in our country before our joining to the European Union. So it was at the beginning, we joined the European Union in the year 2004. And we start preparation of SAPARD in 1999, and implement it at the beginning of before the joining European Union, at the beginning of our membership. So we start with this strategy and justification. Of course, the program should be in compliance with all rules. It is the EU regulations which regulate preparation and implementation of SAPARD program. It's based on the analysis of needs of Polish rural sector and agriculture. And because the SAPARD was the preparation for the membership, so it was in the view of the EU accession, the SAPARD was prepared in the broad consultation. So both on the regional level and also with different economic and social partners. Always we are working with limited resources. You know, it's very, very seldom that the resources are unlimited. So you need to take decisions where you would like to allocate resources and how much. So balanced allocation of funding between agriculture and rural development priorities, it was our approach. So we want to improve the competitiveness of our agri-food sector, both on domestic and international markets. Adjustment to the Polish agri-food sector to sanitary and hygiene standard of the European single market, and encouragement of multifunctional rural development, especially via developing infrastructure and creating good conditions for non-agriculture economic activities in rural areas. So those were our strategic objectives for SAPARD program. So what decision we taken? So we create this priority axis for improvement of efficiency of agri-food sector. And under this axis, we have a measure addressing to the food processing and marketing. So we allocated over 38% of the public funds for this, for improvement of processing and marketing and food of fishery products. And just 18.1% of the public funds for investment in agriculture holdings. So on this stage, we decided that we need a good processing and marketing system, because in this way, the agriculture production could be processed and delivered to market, not just investment in agriculture holdings. The second axis was addressed for improvement of conditions for economic activities and job creations. So rural infrastructure. Almost 29% we addressed to rural infrastructure, because at this stage we have poor roads, poor sewage system, water supply, and so on. So it was for this. And over 10% we address for diversification of economic activities in rural areas. So for creation additional sources of income for farmers. And we have some complementary horizontal axis addresses to agro environmental issue, for vocational training and for technical assistance. This technical assistance is important measures because particularly in the situation when some measures are more complex, you need to help beneficiaries how to apply for project support, how to work with it. So technical assistance is very important. So improvement in processing and marketing. What was behind this measure? We have few schemes. So we have a capital grants for processing products and animal origin, including fish. Support for restructuring the processing and improving the marketing and fruit and vegetables products. So improve safety and quality of products, increase the number of processing plants which fulfill European Union sanitary and veterinary standard. On this edge of our membership, it was a very important issue that our processing plants were fulfilling this sanitary and veterinary standard. So also the strength of the producers group and their associations. Already I mentioned it a few times that the position of farmers in the value food chain is very weak. It could be improved? How could we increase the negotiation power of farmers? Is among others measures to help farmers to organize themselves. So one way to organize themselves is the producers group and their association, and limit environmental pollution originating from food processing plant. So modernization of veterinary, sanitary and welfare standard, modernization of production lines, implementation of the food processing safety system. So such projects had been supported under SAPARD program under this measure. Investment in the waste and body and products management, purchase of milk tanks and coolers, construction of new batteries in the fish sector, storage, ice producing and containers washing facilities. Such projects have been supported under this measure for improving in processing and marketing of food and fishery products. So we have a different type of beneficiaries according to the requirements and conditions defined in the each schemes. In the case of these private companies which had been supported through the SAPARD program, they could receive 50% of eligible costs, and it was quite a reasonable amount of money, because in the case of industrial plants it was this level, almost 1.5
Müvafiq xərclərin 50%-ine qədər
and minimum was 30,000 euro subsidy for the projects. In the capital grants under the next schemes for fruit and vegetables processing, it was here was a lower level, but again,
burada
the half of the budget for the project could be supported from SAPARD. And in the case of producers groups, it was increased to the €500,000 and minimum was 30,000. So investment in agriculture holding, it was a measure under which farmers could apply for support. So we have the scheme addressed to milk producers, the schemes for modernization of livestock farms, and so cattle, sheep, pigs. So such farmers could receive the support, and scheme for diversification and valorization of the agriculture production. What kind of action activities could be implemented under this scheme? So construction, extension, and modernization of farm, buying equipment, infrastructure, so purchase of machinery and different type of equipment, and construction, and so on. So also purchase of breeding stock for increasing the quality of the animals on the farms. So the condition was that farmers who want to receive the support should sign the declaration that they will farm for the next 10-15 years. It depends on the scheme. So we also have some limits of the productions. The idea was in general that SAPARD on the one hand shouldn't support the very big and rich farm, because they could work and produce without the public support. And also on the other hand, our intention was not to waste money for supporting such very small farms. They will have no chance to, in fact, to be competitive on the market. So intention was to identify the group of farms which, after receiving the support, could be really more competitive. But we have to keep in mind that it was the public support. It means that, and for me, this public support was some kind of investment. We invest in agriculture to have a better agriculture, more efficient, more competitive in the future. So it was the level in the case of farm, 25,000 euro in the case of milk farms. In the case of different type, we have we define the level of the support for farmers. So in the case of diversification of valorization, it was 12,000 euro per farm. Measures development of rural infrastructure, so water supply and sewage system, solid waste management, and Roads on the gmina community and powiat rayon level, and also energy supplies. This type of infrastructure could receive the support from SAPARD program. So we define the level of support. So it was up to 75% of the support. Beneficiary gmina, commune, or intergmina association, and in this case it was the higher support. Sewage system, wastewater purification and disposal. Here was a higher level, again, gmina and gmina's association. Solid waste management, so waste dumping sites, or organic waste composting, and such facilities for treating the waste. And the level of the support was up to 300,000 euro. Again, gmina and gmina association. So the next roads, we have gmina and powiat roads. The support was 100,000 euro. Beneficiary gminas and powiat. Powiat is more or less the rayon. And energy supply system, also local energy sources like wind, water, geothermal, biomass, and so on. And again, gminas would apply for the projects from this measure. The diversification of economic activities in rural areas. So the schemes for providing additional income sources for farm households, and the schemes for new jobs in rural areas, and public tourist infrastructure in rural areas. Some of you mentioned rural tourism development as an important factor. So we under SAPARD support the tourist infrastructure, which was not just for one farm, but for the group of farms, or for the region, which create a good conditions for developing facilities by farmers themselves. So here it was a much lower level, but nonetheless it was quite significant amount of money for these activities. So providing additional income sources to farm households. So farmers or household members who find a way to create additional sources of income, have a good proposal, good project, could apply for it and receive 9,500 euro for the projects. New jobs in rural areas, it was addressed to entrepreneurs, and it was up to 50,000 euro, but it was a condition, the creation of new jobs, and it was the 8,300 euro per new created job. Public tourist infrastructure up to 30,000 euro, and In this case, beneficiaries were gminas and non-governmental organization as well. Agro-environmental measures for developed different facilities protecting an environment and promotion of afforestation on private agricultural land as well. So conservation of biological diversity and protecting the landscape value, promotion on organic farming, and it was limited that the farm should be bigger, the size of agricultural land than 3 hectares. There was no limit for organic farms, but so it is, you know, our approach at that stage was that the farm smaller than 3 hectares would not survive, and it would be a waste of money investing in such small farms. So 3 hectares was the limit. The farms should be bigger than 3 hectares. Okay, so implementation was the first phase, and the second phase. So it was the beginning of the 21st century. Afforestation, it was a pilot project. We tried to practice it because we know that during the membership we will have possibility to support it, so we want to practice it, and it was the pilot in 2 selected regions, in Podlaskie region and in Świętokrzyskie, when we practice it. Vocational training, the objective was to increase the level of knowledge and skills of farmers taking up economic activities outside of agriculture, so outside other than conventional agricultural production, and to increase the level of knowledge and skills of farmers also for agriculture, forestry, and fishery. Trainings for diversification, and trainings activities concerning agriculture, forestry, and fishery. And it was addressed to farmers and implemented on the base of bottom up. So it means that it was a possibility to propose some training, but also some training can be proposed from the top. We have a horizontal training and original training activities. And technical assistance, which I already mentioned, played an important role in support the program implementation, also monitoring the program, and ensure the adequate flow of information and publicity campaign. And the technical assistance also support studies, visits, and seminars, provide support for external expertise, and provide support for midterm evaluation of the program. So it was a table with which break out the budget of the program. So it was a total budget of our support program in euro, and for us it was really a great experience. We learned a lot during the support preparation and implementation, and that allowed us to really will be well prepared for for the membership. In the case of the rural development program, very important is the implementing system. So for European Union, for implementing common agriculture and rural development policy, there is a need for the paying agency, implementing and paying agency. So for this reason, we created the special institutions, Agency for Restructuring and Modernization of Agriculture. This agency implemented the program. Some measures had been implemented horizontally for the whole country, and selected measures regionally by regional offices of this agency. This agency had and still has branches at that time they had only regional level. Now they have 16 regional level, and also offices on the level of county levels. So this agency is now still existing and implementing rural development program. For us, as I said, it was a great experience, but it seems that those experience really was a good one, because as the result, Polish agriculture developed quite well. We had been afraid at the beginning of our membership, what's going to happen with Polish farms, with our agriculture production, but the results are very, very impressive. Our agriculture is really doing quite well. It's very competitive, and we have a great increase of agricultural production and great increase of the quality of life in rural areas. Of course, we are facing many problems, but for sure, the progress is really very, very great one. Thank you very much.
Let's open the discussion now. And let me request Ramil to conduct the discussion. And let me also, at the end of the discussion, to say a couple of words
So,
to
any
close
questions, comments?
and summarize.
Hörmətli həmkarlar, sual verməkdə sərbəst olun.
Yes, dear colleagues, please be free to ask questions. We are finished with the 3 presentations. You can ask your questions with regards to any of them. There was one question which we added asked at the beginning of this session, but this presentation was the answer to that question. So we have a specific topic today. If you have any questions, please go ahead. I hope you hear the translation, and please feel yourself free to ask any question.
I didn't hear anything.
Sualı olan varsa, zəhmət olmasa sualını versin. Sual yoxdursa, cənab Yasir qısa bir təqdimat.
So if nobody has any questions, then Jacek has some words to say for his final statement. and we will close it at 1 o'clock.
Bir sual varsa buyurun.
Should you have any questions, please ask it now.
Eldar müəllim, siz nəsə dəqiqləşdirmək istəyirdiniz bayaq.
It looks like somebody wanted to clarify something.
Sizə təqdimatlar göndəriləcəkdi. Ola bilər sonunda bəzi kəsintilər olmuşdu. Onun üçün üzürlü sayın. İnternetinə bağlı təqdimatlar göndəriləcəkdi mənə.
All the presentations will be submitted to you. There was some break of internet connection. Actually, we're supposed to take into account all these problems. You know, you will never face problems if you don't do anything, but unfortunately, we have some problems with voices. We've heard this in chat.
Yazılı yoldaşlar öz fikirlərini bildirirlər. Hər hansı bir kommentiniz, şərhiniz də varsa qoşularaq bildirə bilərsiniz.
If you have any comments, please go ahead. Thank you for joining us. He refers to the staff of the ministry.
İndi eşidilmir səsim, zəhmət olmasa. Ümid edirəm ki, səsim eşidilir.
I hope you can hear me.
Tərcümə də var, yəni. Sual yoxdursa onda...
So, no questions. So, Jacek, please, your final statements and we will close it. Overall, I hear the reflections in the chat room that everybody appreciates this information. It was very useful.
Please, Jacek.
Thank you, Ramil. Thank you for supporting us and for moderating this workshop today. Let me say a couple of words to clarify not only the presentations, but also I need to tell you that this is just the first one. So many new conduct the next workshops. The following one is on Thursday, and you will hear a lot of different specific information, more detailed. So probably there will be more questions about very detailed issues. But let me say a couple of words to summarize today's First of all, from the beginning of our European, let's say, adventure of the membership of Poland, Poland is the most successful country with utilizing EU funding and implementing rural development policy. This is one of the very well designed, very costly, I must admit, system of planning, development, and agricultural sector as well. Secondly, I must add to what Andrzej said before about at the very beginning about this strategy. You see, always at the beginning must be the strategic vision, and the strategic vision is made of of words, of statements, of positions of different stakeholders. But finally, these are politicians who are empowered in the country to take certain top decisions. And there must be a political will to set up the policy. The policy, what is policy? Let me say like that. The policy, in fact, is the strategy plus money. So policy is a plan, very broad, showing the way for development. And the plan is including a certain amount of resources, of which the most is money. So for politicians, in fact, for ministers, for members of parliament, any other politicians who are involved in taking decisions at the state level, it's very important to have all the backstage support, which is provided by researchers, experts, and technical assistants, consultants, because the studies, analysis, and expertise, they form the substructure of the strategic plan. And there is a very, very fundamental role of the civil service, of people working as advisors, as civil service staff, who support policymakers to define the strategy, and they work at the backstage to let the policymakers to take the right decisions. Not only the decisions, but the right decisions based on appropriate, good, and let's say positive for development of the country decisions. That's why I believe that not only statistical figures count.
Burada böyle ehemmiyet
Studies and research work, which is behind decision making and decision taking, because statistical figures give you a very broad, sometimes very specific information, but it always has to be analyzed. It also always has to be reviewed. And there is a lot of technical matters. Those decisions, before they are taken, they must be discussed and agreed with beneficiaries, with the farmers, rural dwellers, organizations of farmers. And there is plenty of other work that has to be made. And we will talk about it during the next workshops over February and March. We will finish with the number 8. The last will be 8th workshop. But now let's get ready for the second one, which will be on Thursday morning. And thank you very much for your participation. I hope it was interesting to you. I'm sure there will be plenty of other questions that we will raise next time on Thursday. So see you on Thursday, but not only to see you, I wish you not only to see each other, but also I wish ourselves to be as active as we have been today, and as successful as we've been with our participation and commitment to this particular event. Thank you very much.
Jacek, may I add something?
Absolutely, yes.
Good morning, I'm Namdarian. I'm very, very happy and proud that you are all participating in this workshop. I would like to inform all the colleagues that In case they have questions, comments, and suggestion, of course, we have the interpretation systems, so they can even express it in the Azeri language, which is a beautiful language, and will be translated and expressed to our trainers. They can even send a question by email in case, so the workshop should be as more interactive as possible. Thank you so much. Could you translate, please?
Let's meet on Thursday morning.
Hörmətli həmkarlar,
And that's it for today. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for information. Thank you, participants.
iştirak üçün hər birinizə bir daha təşəkkürlər.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Though with difficult problems, technical problems, we have managed to make it. We have staff joining us from very far, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you.